Welcome to the Scratch Golfer's Mindset Podcast, the show committed to helping you dismantle the destructive mindset programs keeping you stuck in the proverbial bunker of poor performance so you can get out of your own way and play to your potential. My name is Paul Salter. I'm a high-performance hypnotherapist and mindset coach with 16 years of experience helping thousands of individuals like you get unstuck. This podcast features a collection of solo episodes, conversations with scratch and plus handicap golfers, and masterclasses with top experts in the performance psychology space. The one goal? To help you make playing to your potential a habit. If you've been listening to the show for some time now, then you've heard me say on countless occasions, the game of golf, entrepreneurship, both are merely mirrors of your personal growth and development. And I think today's conversation beautifully and powerfully encapsulates that truth. In today's episode, I sit down with Evan Singer, mental coach and host of the phenomenal Par Train podcast, for a conversation that blends golf, life, relationships, and fatherhood into one powerful masterclass on resilience, self-awareness, and asking for what you want. This is a conversation about slowing down, embracing discomfort, and learning to enjoy the ride no matter what life throws your way. A little more about Evan, in case you're not familiar with him. He's the co-founder and co-host of the Par Train podcast, which is a top-ranked golf podcast that blends sports psychology, personal growth, and on-course strategy. Drawing from years of mental performance coaching and personal development work, Evan helps his golfers and clients transform their mental approach to the game and life. There's so much synergy and alignment between Evan and I am extremely honored to be able to share this conversation with you today. So without further ado, please help me welcome Evan to the show. Evan, it's great to have you on the show. How are you today?
I'm good. Thanks for having me, Paul.
Absolutely. And let's dig in. Tell the listeners, what does it mean to enjoy the ride?
That's a deep one to start with, Paul. What does it mean to enjoy the ride? I think it's having a level of acceptance to that things aren't going to go according to plan. And maybe the stuff that happens that feels uncomfortable or painful in the moment is kind of the point. And maybe the thing you're going to look back on. And like I was just talking to my wife this morning, I was looking for a video of the Minneapolis golf simulators at the airport for something we were doing with Rapsodo. And as I was going through old favorite videos, I'm looking at our newborn stuff and newborn videos and pictures. And man, like that was really challenging. And we had some crazy health scares. But looking back, like, man, that bonded us, like that. You kind of, would I prefer not to go to the ICU? Absolutely. So maybe not that, but everything else, like, that kind of made us who we are. And I think if you are too much, it sounds so cliche to enjoy the ride, but I think the simple answer is if you assume and expect that only good lies ahead, it's one of my favorite affirmations. Yeah. It's a little bit easier to go through some of the discomfort along the way because some of my most painful experiences in my life actually single-handedly led me to the greatest things in my life. And again, it sounds cliche, but yeah, I think that's what enjoy the ride, I think, is supposed to remind us.
I love that. And first, let's be honest, cliches exist for a reason.
They're true.
I'm a big proponent. Like, life is really simple. Golf is simple. Simple is not the same thing as easy. Let's be incredibly clear there. But when we can add a layer of simplicity, and in this case, maybe even accepting just how difficult such a goal and endeavor is, it can make it feel a little easier. But something that stood out to me that you said, I'm going to paraphrase, pain is the point, or pain when purposeful can be incredibly rewarding, fulfilling. Elaborate on that for us.
Yeah, so I think pain, discomfort, I think it's pointing us towards what we want through the contrast. So without the contrast, you don't really know what you want. And without knowing what you want, you can't move towards it. I think a lot of people spend too much energy and, frankly, a lot of their lives in the energy of what I don't want. But if you can move beyond this is painful, I want something else, I deserve something better, and you start to shape your behaviors and your habits and your decisions with that in mind, it changes everything. So let me give you a quick story. I haven't told this really publicly, but so for 4 years, I was in a horrifically toxic relationship. We lived together. I knew as soon as we moved in together that this probably wasn't right. Unfortunately, her dad had stage 4 cancer, and I was going down to San Diego every weekend for an entire year to help change his diapers, to help turn him over in the bed so he didn't get, bed spots or whatever, bed sores. And I just kept rationalizing that she's acting the way she is, maybe because of what she's going through. And so I let the relationship go on much longer than it needed to because of the situation with her family. And I didn't feel right to also have her go through a breakup when I was trying to, quote, be there for her. But that experience was the first time in my life, Paul, that, you probably know from my show, like I've worked really hard and studied for decades about how to incorporate positive thinking, my own mindset work, coaching to change my own life, right? But this was the first time in my life that I hated going to work and I hated coming home. And so when I work with people that are really going through it, that's really helpful because I know what it's like to be in this numb phase. I was drinking, 3 to 5 drinks a night. Wasn't really even thinking about it either. It wasn't like I was consciously doing it, just like a couple big glasses of wine, maybe a little glass of scotch or a beer, and like kind of numbing my way through it. And after I went through that and I finally ended it and I had nowhere to live, I hired a coach, my coach, who I've worked with now since 2019. And everything about that relationship made me get really clear on like, wait, what do I want? What do I need? What do I deserve? And so that kind of started shaping my list of qualities. And then the craziest thing happened. I started going on dates.
Okay.
And instead of thinking, and you'll be able to relate this to anything in your life, work, relationships, golf, whatever. Instead of going into every date like I used to, of like, is this going to be the one? I started going into every date as an experiment to understand what I liked and what I didn't.
Yep.
And I would take that back to my coach and we would get clear of like, I really like a sweet energy. I really, I avoid blunt energy, super direct, loud energy. I like a sweet, like very caring, nurturing energy. That's one example. So after each date, I would get clearer and clearer. And the most amazing thing happened. I made myself a promise. I said, I've let relationships go on too long, knowing they weren't right for me, but I didn't want to have the painful conversation and quote, blow up my life is kind of how it felt. So I made myself a promise. When I get that feeling in my gut of, this just isn't it, I end it there. And I'm totally honest with them. And I say, hey, look, you know, you seem like a great person. I'm not going to give you like it's not you, it's me cliche. But what I did say is, hey, I've had this gut feeling in the past where I let things go on too long. I made myself a promise this time around that I'm going to listen to that voice and I'm going to honor me and do what's best for me while also respecting your time and not wasting your time. So I said that to people after like some really great dates, sometimes 4 or 5 dates in. And I think by doing that, I was signaling to the universe or whatever you believe in that I'm putting myself first and I'm listening to the inner voice and I'm honoring that. And by doing that, amazingly enough, I met people in the first month of being ready to date again that were far better fits for me than my 4-year relationship. So I think that was like a sign of like, oh no, there are people out there. It doesn't matter that you're 30 years old. Like there's people out there for you. And then when I said no to quote, great options, it was another signal that like, no, I'm putting my actions aligning with my words. And I wanted to find someone, but I wasn't so attached to it that I was super emotional about it not working out. I was just gathering information about what was for me. And within 9 months of that, I met my wife. And actually, I was with someone before her. I had been on like 4 or 5 dates that was going like really well. But there was still that inner feeling of like, there is something that's not quite like all in. And so I was honest with her. She was kind of blindsided. And then I met my wife like a couple days later. And that's when I was like, oh, the first thing I thought, Paul, when I met her, I didn't expect to be going into relationships on this podcast, but here we are. The first time I met her, I literally had the thought, this is what I'm talking about. And it was like instant. I knew on the 3rd date that she was for me. We moved in together a year later. I proposed like 6 months after that. So, you know, I think a lot of people, going back to the original point, they're either really rooted in complaining and what they don't want, which doesn't really get you into a place where you can attract what you do. Yeah. And the fact that I was like taking a lot of action towards what I wanted, but without the attachment that I had to meet her tomorrow or that I was being rejected. Yeah. Like I was understanding if it was a right fit for me. I wasn't trying to impress them. I was trying to understand who they were. I was carrying conversations. I was interested in who they were. But I wasn't as concerned about will they like me because I was trying to get clear on what was right. And that formula has literally been like this. That has been the same thing for everything amazing I've attracted in my life. The podcast, work opportunities, my family. Like I see so many people in my family, friends that clearly don't like where they're at, but they're not matching those rockets of desire with action. So they're staying stuck in what they don't want. And me going on date after date after date and ending things after they didn't feel right got me closer to eventually something greater than I ever could have even written down on a piece of paper. So I don't even remember your original question, but I just went down a crazy rabbit hole that hopefully was helpful to someone.
Incredibly. I appreciate the vulnerability and I have an extra laugh in here because I just had a podcast with Josh Nichols yesterday and we too spent like 15 minutes talking about relationships out of nowhere. So this just seems to be the theme of relationships on golf specific podcasts. I love that. A couple of things stand out. I mean, there's so many gems in what you just shared. But I've been chewing on a quote lately. You can't have what you really want until you first really are who you are. I'm going to butcher that. Let me take that again. You can't have what you really want until you first are who you really are. Authenticity is what I hear in your story. Being honest, taking ownership of what it is you want, who you are, where you're going, and not being afraid to share that in order to avoid confrontation, hurting someone's feelings. And for you, like, it's almost like I felt this shift in power and operating from a place of power. This is who I am. I'm approaching this dating experiment. I love that word. With curiosity. You're using pain and hardship to learn and grow. You're reflecting. What can I learn about this so I don't make the same mistake twice? Pretty good synopsis.
Yeah.
So talk to me about this, whether from your experience or in the clients you work with. You're right. We're so conditioned to find ease in what we don't want. Yet you and I both know society, our environment, and our upbringing makes it a little cloudy and difficult to express what we authentically want. What's the action step, or likely multiple, to begin finding clarity on what it is you want as an individual, not what your parents want, not what society wants of you?
So one of my favorite quotes or concepts that I learned from one of my favorite authors and podcasters, it has totally shaped my life, is Tim Ferriss has talked a lot about the full body yes. And that was another part of that relationship story. Was there, in my opinion, there's no such thing as pro cons lists. If you're doing pro con lists, that's not a full body yes. A full body yes feels like you got an opportunity to meet someone, go somewhere, do something, work on something that is an absolute hell yes. I can't believe I was asked to do this. And I think, so it really comes down to excitement. I think what excites you, what fires you up is how you move closer, and that doesn't mean, especially for people, it actually doesn't even matter. It doesn't, not necessarily just for people starting out in their careers. I think anyone, if you're 50 years old, you can decide to, quote, start over tomorrow. But I think, as someone that grew up in the Midwest from a Jewish family, my mom used to say to me all the time, we don't make waves. We don't rock the boat. She would rather be dying of heat exhaustion than ask someone to turn up the AC, because that is rude. That was perceived rude to ask for what you want. And I have a whole story about the magic of asking for what you want. If you want another great story at a winery. But I think it comes down to, to your point, being comfortable asking for what you want and feeling deserving that you can have it. It's not greedy. It's not selfish. I don't know. My grandpa, who watched me every day when I was in kindergarten, went to every sporting event of my life growing up. I named my son after him, his middle name. My son's name's Tatum Jack. So my grandpa was named Jack. And, when he was interviewed by his hospice nurse towards the end of his life, he didn't talk about, all he talked about was family, So it's interesting, he wasn't wealthy, wasn't even middle class. And I'm fascinated. I think about him and that a lot, because I think as a dad and an entrepreneur and multiple businesses, and, I work in a world that is quantified every single thing that I do, whether it's listeners or likes or views. And it's always easy to compare versus what someone else is doing. And you just have to remind yourself, that's not the stuff that matters in the end. What are you going to talk about at the end? And that's, family experiences and going for something, and giving it a shot. So yeah, if you want to talk about the power of asking for what you want, I'd be happy to tell that story. It's a funny one.
Let's hear it. Yeah.
Okay. So I was talking to my wife, Tara, about this and how I was like, this is really something that I want you to check me on, push me on. It's not comfortable because I was raised to not do it. But it's okay. I'm not rude if I ask the waiter for something or I say, hey, this is undercooked. I don't need to eat undercooked fish. It's okay to send it back. And so this was very top of mind, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this was back, I don't drink anymore, but this is back when I did. And we were at a winery in Paso Robles, the Dow Winery, which is like 2.5 hours, 3 hours north of LA on the way to the Bay Area. And, I made a joke to her. I was like, why is it every time I go wine tasting, I have to taste 4 or 5 wines that I don't like just to get to the Cabernet? And I'm like, wouldn't it be awesome if we could taste 5 different Cabernets or whatever wine you like? Like, I want to taste test the wine I like, not some flight and push myself through it just to get to the thing I like. So we found that the Dow Winery had a quote Cabernet experience on the website. She found it. So we get to the winery and we sit down. And first of all, we sit down on a table to the far right side of the patio. The Dow Winery is beautiful. It's up on this cliff. The hawks literally are flying even with you. That's how high up the winery is. And we're sitting off to the right and in the shade. And it's a little chilly. And so I'm thinking about asking for what I want. And I say, excuse me, sir, is there any way that we could be seated in the sun? And he goes, yeah, let me see what I can do. Literally picks up the table, puts it on his shoulder, and walks us out to the middle of the overhang. It was the most beautiful placement. There wasn't even a table there. He put the table there, and it was in the middle of everything. It was the best seat in the house that we wouldn't have gotten if I didn't ask. And then we sit down at our new table, really the same table, but new spot. And I say, we saw on your website, it would be great to we'd love to have the Cabernet experience. And the waiter was a little flustered. He doesn't get this question very often. Apparently it's not on the menu at the winery. Mm-hmm. And he goes, well, normally we have to request that ahead of time, but let me see what I can do. He comes out and he goes, we're able to make it happen, sir. What's your name? And he asked for my name. He goes, Mr. Singer, we're able to make the Cabernet experience happen for you. Stand by. We're very excited for you. Then he brings over a personal sommelier. Nobody else has a sommelier. We have a one-on-one sommelier to walk us through what's about to happen. Now, for context, everyone sitting in this beautiful big patio, I'm talking hundreds of people, all they have in front of them is 1 glass each. And someone comes around with a bottle and they fill the glass up, very small amount for tastings at the bottom. Yep. And that's what everyone's table looks like. Well, the sommelier comes back to our table and puts down 5 bottles and 5 glasses each. Now, if you're looking and people are starting to look what's going on here? And I'm starting to wonder, what did we order? Are we buying these bottles? What is going on? He starts to pour much more wine. I'm talking double the amount. In every glass, we each get 5 glasses in front of the 5 bottles. So there's 10 bottles on the table. And these are small tables. We're wondering what's going on, right? This couldn't have been what we ordered. This is crazy. Then a waiter comes by and says complimentary. Or no, actually, sorry. He did not say complimentary. He brought out a 4-foot-long charcuterie on a wood cutting board. 3 to 4 feet long. I'm not exaggerating. It literally hung off the table. Cheeses, meats, grapes, radishes, nuts, pesto. And we're was this a part of the experience? How much, Tara, how much was this? She said on the website, it was just $65 a person. And I'm like, are you sure? Okay. Then a guy comes by just to check in on how we're doing. And he says, Mr. Singer, why don't you do me a favor? Pick your favorite bottle of what you like and pour yourself a glass and just walk the grounds a little bit. We'll hold your table, but just pour yourself a glass and enjoy the scenery. And Tara and I are looking at each other again. How much was this? Like, is this? And we're freaking out. I'm thinking this is like $2,000. Okay.
Naturally.
People are coming up to us. What did you order? One old guy came up to me and talking to Tara. It's like, I thought, what does your guy here do for a living? Does he own a tech company? Like, what is this? We go, it's just a Cabernet experience. I saw it online. Long story short, they're like, and why don't you pick a bottle, your favorite bottle, and take that with you, right? We go through this whole thing, an hour and a half experience. I'm talking like they're telling me exactly what's in every bottle. They're giving me extra pours, 10 bottles on the table, the charcuterie, $65 a person. And we were and by the way, we bought our favorite bottle, which was more than the experience. It was about $80. And we saved that bottle. And I popped that bottle open on the top of Bell Rock in Sedona when I proposed, like 6 to 8 months later. And to this day, that bottle, even though neither of us drink anymore, that bottle is in our house as a symbol of ask for what you want. Because I don't know whether it's this psychological thing, but I've been around some pretty wealthy people, and they all kind of have that in common. Like they're not really scared to ask for what they want. They have very particular taste. They're paying for something. They want to have that be what they're expecting. And it was very fascinating to me that just by asking to go to a different table and asking for an experience that wasn't on the menu, people treated us like we were literally celebrities. And I've never forgotten that. And it's still uncomfortable. That was 2018. It's still uncomfortable for me to ask for what I want, but it is a mantra of mine to not be afraid to ask for what you want. And I always remember that story.
That's a beautiful story. I appreciate you sharing that. So neat, so powerful. I'm curious, personally, professionally, all the above, why do people struggle to authentically and honestly ask for what they want?
I think we're kind of conditioned in a society to, maybe even from early days in school, right? Like, don't act out, don't be loud, kind of blend in, don't make waves, as my mom would tell me. And that system doesn't really promote individuals, individual desire, we all learn differently. We all think differently. Our experiences shape how we see the world. So to just kind of like, one of my favorite quotes is, it's something, I'm probably going to butcher this too, but something like, if you find yourself in the majority, pause and rethink. And I've kind of always been that way. I've never really liked doing what everybody else does. I was the first person in my family to go out of state for college. I knew nobody at Arizona. I'm from Missouri. It was a culture shock at first. I cried on my way to the airport. Like, doesn't mean that it was easy, but I've always kind of been, again, going back to that full body yes, like what excites me. I'm excited by doing things that are different. And I'm excited by believing that I can create something that is in my head. Like, if it's in my head, there's a reason it's in my head. And everything in this world was created from a nugget of someone's thought in their head. So, I don't think people are celebrated to be different. I think we're conditioned to be quiet, and maybe asking for what you want kind of breaks out of that status quo, politeness. But really, is if you do it politely, it's not rude. It's totally okay.
Yeah, I mean, so much wisdom there. Like, I come back to, like, we're all wired to belong. That sense of connected, to fit in with the masses, was literally how our species survived. What stands out to me, two things. Number one, this politeness. A book that changed my life. I like to jokingly say I was a chronic people pleaser, always putting other needs first at the expense of
Mhm.
my own for a long time. To be kind versus to be nice. The same, yet also incredibly different. When you're
Mm.
kind, you can still be respectful in asking for what you want. Whereas a lot of people think nice is defaulting to other people's needs, to be selfless at the expense of your own needs. So for you listening, it's just really important to pick up on the verbiage Evan is using here. A lot of intentionality there and understanding there are many reasons it might feel difficult to ask for what you want. Society, your upbringing, your parents. But I also come back to the word outstanding. To be outstanding, you must stand out. To be outstanding, you must ask for and go after what it is you want. The stand out portion might make you feel isolated, alone, and misunderstood. But the more you stand out, the more you begin to attract your tribe. So you get to reinvent that deep sense of feeling connected and belonged and accepted.
Yeah, I love that. I find that true happiness and fulfillment and just feeling excited each day is a interesting line between selfish and selfless. Because if you lean too much into selfless, you're not doing it from a place of kindness. You're doing it out of a place of obligation.
Mm-hmm.
And selfish is an amazing place to start. That's where I started with finding the right relationship. A lot of people after a breakup get selfish, right? They start to exercise, they start to eat right, they start to get clear on what they like, and they only do it after giving themselves permission after a painful experience. But if you're too selfish, that can, that can go the other way.
Mm-hmm.
So it's being selfish enough to understand what you want and being okay to ask for it. And also realizing that anytime I'm feeling pain, frustration, or discomfort, I'm probably leaning too much into me. And the best way to get out of that is to lean into someone else. And so it's this like perfect balance of those two things that I think are a good compass to, get closer to happiness or fulfillment.
Selflessly selfish is how I've always framed it. It's being selfish with the intention to be able to better be selfless, putting your needs first. The cliche, again, we'll come back to cliches. Fill your cup up first, put your oxygen mask on first so you can better serve your loved ones, whoever you serve in your life.
Yep.
Now, here's an interesting pattern I picked up. You've used the word excitement or excited in multiple times here. I love that. How do you experience excitement? Like physically in your body, we come back to this whole body yes. And the context here is most people interchangeably use excitement, nervousness, or fear. And a lot of people make the mistake of when they're actually excited, which you and I both know is just a physiological response of readiness, they think it's fear, and that keeps them stuck. What's excitement like for you in your experience?
I think I just get like fired up. I talk faster. I talk louder.
Yeah, I know that.
My body feels like energetic. I'm usually moving, wanting to move. I can almost feel the like excitement in my chest, heart pumps a little bit. Yeah, I think it's a good question. I've never tried to articulate it, and I think it's probably different for each person, but I think intuitively you just know when something fires you up on the inside,
Are you able to contrast that with when you're nervous, or is it the same for you?
That's a good question. It definitely it can feel different. Nerves in my mind can sometimes feel apprehensive, tentative, fearful, leaning into what ifs, whereas excitement is much more offensive. Excitement is watch me hit this shot.
Yeah.
if we're going to use golf as an example, excitement is like, I'm ready to compete. Whereas nerves can sometimes get me into a place where I'm afraid to fail, you know?
Yeah. I love that. The offensive versus the defensive mindset, excitement versus nervousness or fear. That's powerful. For those of you listening, make sure you write that down. I think that is an incredible lens to view each of those two normal human body experiences to better put you in the frame of mind you need to be in to perform or execute at whatever it is you're doing. We should finally talk about golf. Eventually we'll get there. Maybe get a little more specific.
Yeah,
You've got an incredible background, incredible knowledge. Candidly, I found myself learning things, just doing my research, following you on social for a while. I'm going to generically bucket everything under the term of stress management practices. Where are most people going wrong when they attempt to manage their stress? And what is your one low-hanging fruit or priority action step that you regularly engage in to help you manage your stress?
I think it comes down to when you're getting stressed, you're usually focused on the meaning. And the best way I get out of stress is to focus on the doing. And that could be, so I'll use golf as an example. Okay. So I'm coaching a woman right now that's very new in golf. And her 9-year-old son plays, he's quite good. And she is taking lessons 1 or 2 times a week. She's going to the driving range. Like, she's committed, right? But she is a history of crippling anxiety, not just in golf, but now it's bleeding over into golf. And even so at the driving range, like scared to miss that someone's going to like laugh at her or not, she's not going to feel accepted or she feels like a fish out of water, right? And golf can very much feel that way. There's failure all around us and and a lot of times you feel like you're the only one that feels that way, where you don't want to top one off the first tee or make a fool of yourself, in front of people. And so, things like, it's just a game, it's just golf, you're with your 9-year-old son, just have fun. That doesn't work because in her mind, it matters. Like, you can't, I love this from Dr. Brett McCabe, the sports psychologist for John Rahm, Billy Horschel, Sam Burns, so many guys on tour. I flew out to see him in Alabama, and we've had him on the show like 5 times. He's one of my favorite guests. I've never forgotten this quote. He says, "You can't tell a soldier in Iraq to act like it's North Carolina. You can't. Like, you have to accept that you're in Iraq." But so going back to the woman I'm coaching, she had a ton of anxiety, right? Well, so I use mental golf type training. I'm certified in that, which is essentially kind of like a Myers-Briggs driven system so that she takes an assessment. We get her type back. I have a ton of resources that kind of break down her best mode versus her stress mode. But what I love about it is it gives me a great foundation of how she's wired. And I know she works in legal compliance. She's super structured. She's super detail oriented. She has a plan for everything. Now, how do you think someone's going to feel if in every other part of your life you are detail oriented, you are structured, you have plans, and then you go to the golf course thinking 9 things in a 2-second motion and you have no plan at all if it fails? And I asked her, I said, "Hey, how would you feel if before walking into a legal meeting, you were given a 50-page document and asked to brief everyone in 5 minutes?" You'd probably feel pretty anxious. That's kind of how you're walking into the golf course, right? So we got really clear on what she does on shots that she doesn't like the outcome. And we get really clear on what happened when she gets a good one. And I found that there's one thing that she does that tends to be a common thread, which is she kind of falls back on her back foot, kind of tries to scoop it, right? Probably weak, tentative. But when she finishes with her chest at the target, she usually gets better outcomes. So I said, what if we stripped away all 9 swing thoughts you're thinking of? You can still work on those at the range. But when it comes to playing golf, what if your only scorecard was counting how many swings you've finished with your chest to the target? And what's your goal? 70% of swings? Okay, so that's your new scorecard. And all I want you to do all day is finish with your chest to the target. And you come back to me in 2 weeks and you let me know what your percentages are. And then let's unpack what happens on the ones you do, what happens on the ones you don't. And look, I figured it would help. This is what I do. But also, it is amazing when you have the next call and you hear something like, Evan, I've never walked on the golf course without anxiety until now. I played some of my best golf. I was present with my son. I was more concerned about guiding him. I was friendlier on the course. And we played great, and I had an amazing time. And that, to me, is a perfect example of how to deal with stress. It's a lot of times stripping things away, but it's giving you a task that you feel competent enough to try and do. And you can just keep going back to that versus I'm not really trying to reduce her anxiety at all. Yeah. I just gave her something that she felt equipped to focus on. And so all of her anxiety was just revealing the fact that she didn't feel competent to handle all of the things she was putting her brain under. And so every time that she messed up, what do you have to go on? 9 things again in 2 seconds? Like, that gives me anxiety just thinking about it. And trust me, I've done it too. I still do. Yeah. So it's really a game of, it's not really like our mind sensationalizes things to make you feel like you lost it or you took 10 steps back. I like to think of it more as just a return. You got off course and you return back to something. But the key is you got to have something to return back to. And so that, I think, is a good story to help with understanding how to manage stress.
Yeah, I mean, there's 2 big components I hear from that awesome story. Number 1, there's an anchor, a home base, if you will, something to return to when we start to feel overwhelmed. You know, you and I both know it's incredibly easy to feel as if we're drinking through a garden hose when all things swing thoughts are being discussed. But what I also hear too, and you've subtly dropped this throughout a lot of the coaching aspects of this discussion, is ruthless reflection on the micro and the macro. It allows you to quickly spot and identify patterns and accelerates the learning curve, so long as it's paired with action, which you alluded to when you talked about how do we get out of stress, meaning, and then action. And I've just, for the listener, you know, the best of the best in every industry, every sport, are ruthless in their reflection. It truly is a superpower that accelerates the learning curve. And if you don't have a reflection process, you know, an after round report variation, a way to reflect on your day, your week, your month, your quarter, you're leaving so many missed opportunities on the table.
Yeah.
So tell me this, mid-round, I've got back-to-back doubles I'm trying to work through. What are you telling your clients? What are you doing personally when things have gone so outside expectation, beyond your control, and you need to reset and refocus to finish strong? How are you helping yourself and others reset and reclaim a sense of presence in the round?
So again, just like telling yourself to not be upset, probably not going to work, especially if you're someone that cares a lot and you put time and money into it. Trust me, I've tried every version of that. I can tell you from experience it doesn't work. And I've walked some of the greatest fairways in the entire world feeling absolutely miserable. So I'm pretty clear on what doesn't work. I think awareness, you used ruthless reflection. It's basically awareness, right? You have to understand. I learned this from Rick Sessinghaus, the coach of Colin Morikawa, since he was 8 years old. They did something growing up that I think is really valuable, which is Colin would hit a shot And Rick would say, okay, would you change anything? Well, I didn't think that the rough would grab it as much as it did. So the rough's thicker than I thought. So I either need to take a different line because it's not going to carry as far. Maybe I need to club up. Maybe I need to put it back in my stance. So the lie was worse than I thought. That's what happened on that shot that came out a little heavy. So and then they would do that 3 times. So Colin would make a new decision on shot 2 based on what he learned from shot 1. And then Rick would come in on the 3rd and suggest something different to do. So basically what Rick was doing is he was teaching a post-shot routine to understand what happened. Because again, if the mind sensationalizes and I just made back-to-back doubles, I might think I'm the worst golfer in the world. I blew it. I'm a failure. I can't believe I did that again. I told myself at the start of the day, no mental errors, no big numbers. Let's just keep it in front of us. And then I just did that. Right? But if you get clear on what actually happened, then it becomes very clear of like, oh, okay, so it's not that I'm a failure. It's that maybe I was nervous and I rushed through. So I didn't do my routine at all. Okay, well, what happens when I rush and I don't do my routine? I probably miss it to the right. And I missed it to the right. So, I just rushed. So on the next shot, I'm going to slow down. Do you see the difference between that and feeling like I failed?
Yeah.
And if I feel like I failed, and then I get in my emotions, and then I make more errors, and I'm rushing, and I feel worse, and then I give up on the round, I'm probably just going to go to the range and think I need to reinvent my swing.
Correct.
Because I blew up. I had a terrible day. But like, if you don't get clear on what actually happened, you don't actually know what to do to rectify it. So that's really the game. It's like, first you have to understand your patterns and what happens when you do X versus what happens when you do Y. People versus task is a big one I see. If I'm focused on what people think about me. I want to beat that guy. I want to win. I'm focused on what they're doing. That's all people.
Yeah.
But if I can get back to task, that helps me get back to my best mode. But when I'm driven by people, that is an indicator that I'm in stress mode. So that's why the coaching is so great and why I love it so much is because it's just giving people tools to understand, like, what do you do when you're stressed? What moves you in there? What do you do when you're at your best? And we're going to give you tools to know what to go back to so that you're not blowing up an entire round. Maybe it's a single shot. Maybe it's a hole. Instead of letting it snowball, to an entire round.
I think I want to make sure it doesn't get lost in that, as you kind of hinted at it, is this awareness that you're cultivating necessitates slowing down. And you happen to, whether intentionally or not, use the example of urgency and rushing. I speak from personal experience. I'm hardwired to move 1,000,000 miles an hour, and I've worked very hard to slow down and be intentional, and it's a work in progress. But I share that all the time. It's like there's so much opportunity and things to see that you would otherwise miss going 1,000,000 miles an hour when you're defaulting to being a human doing versus a human being. And in the case of the post-shot reflection, so many people rush to the next one to avoid, numb, or escape the negative emotion or experience that they're having because of a poor shot. Yet when you slow down, you bring your critical thinking brain back online, which allows you to see, am I people focused versus task focused? What's the pattern here, to connect the dots as to why the outcome happened, which again is empowering and allows you to, more or less not make the same mistake twice or learn from that. So incredibly well said.
Yeah, totally agree.
So I'm going to shift gears here. You and I just learned our sons are 3 days apart. I knew it was close, but not that close. That's pretty cool. Congratulations again.
Yeah, you too.
Thank you. What has fatherhood taught you about yourself thus far?
I think it's taught me that which one do I go with here?
Yeah, right.
I think number one, it's been a heart opener for sure. Like I was already pretty, as a man, both my parents are quite like, there's not a ton of like masculine energy in my house. My dad's like a very gentle, kind of soft spoken, sweet, kind man. So naturally I have more of that than like hard masculinity. So I kind of already had that, but I don't know, just the softness.
Yeah.
And also like the level of empathy that I have now is at another level because of what we went through when he was born, what we went through when he was 2 months old. He had a terrible accident, head trauma, skull fracture. And it was because of me. I slipped on a blanket and on the stairs, and it's not my fault. Obviously it was an accident, but that just totally changed me. And so when I see people that are going through something, whether they're a parent or not, like now I know what it's like to have your world stop and everyone else keeps living and you're in the ICU wondering if someone's going to tell me that my son has brain damage. And I just remember feeling, Paul, like we got home, thank God he was okay. He's made a full recovery. But I just remember feeling as we left the hospital and everybody was texting me close to me and saying like, oh, so the doctor says he should make a full recovery. And I remember feeling like, yes, they said he should, but like, we don't know that for sure. And this is kind of hard to explain, but intuitively I kind of felt like, okay, then we're all good. Like I wasn't truly, I felt like people didn't quite understand what it's like to live with that. And like, just because we leave the hospital and he's doing well, doesn't mean that now that stress is gone. Now I'm looking at every single thing he does with this lens of, is there a neurological issue? And I think that's how people live with trauma and pain. And just because someone passed away 6 months ago doesn't mean that they are over it. Yeah. It doesn't mean that you're over it or that you're okay. So when someone's going through something, I will text people and I will say, hey, I don't really know what to say, but I just wanted to know that I'm thinking of you and that I'm here. Yeah. So that's been a huge shift too. I've also had to relearn what it's like to manage stress. Like I thought my wife was going to be the worrier, not after the accident.
Yeah.
Like I'm like really dealing with stuff around his safety and his health. And so that's going to, I'm going to have to keep relearning that too. So I think it's just another lesson of like, there is no, I figured it out as much as I want to say I have. It is a constant 2 steps forward, 1 step back, return to this, notice that. And that's why I think coaching is so important, because I still get excited when something makes me shut down, because I know that is something to take to my coach. And that is that is revealing something that I have not healed. And it better helps me understand what makes me tick, what I care about, what makes me feel down versus what fires me up. Yeah. And so, yeah, that's been I gave you 3 things, but yeah, being a dad is awesome. And I'll end with this. I told my wife this at breakfast this morning, actually. I said, I realize I have 2 goals now in life.
Mm-hmm.
One is I want our son, and hopefully another kid, to grow up and say, I want a relationship like my parents.
Mm.
To me, I'd say to her all the time, me and you are the number one priority.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we are good, we're going to be better parents. And that is so much easier said than done, because it is so hard to be partners when you're living in checklist world. Who's doing what? Did you do this? I'm going to go do that. And we're never together as much as we are in the same room. So that's priority 1. If I can do that, that's a most important win. Number 2 is if my son can grow up and feel like he can confide in me, where we can like talk through stuff, versus feeling like, oh, that's just the parent that like scolded me when I was young, but we haven't like furthered the relationship to be like equals.
Mm-hmm.
That's really important to me, because I've had experiences where sometimes you say something to family and you feel like it's not heard, or maybe it's used in the wrong way, and then you don't feel comfortable sharing anymore. So if I can be a good example in the relationship of my wife and I, and if I can have my son feel like comfortable confiding in me and we can talk about stuff, to me, those are like the most important. If I can do that, I will die a happy man. So that has definitely put some perspective on things too, because man, I can tell you firsthand, my golf game can feel like life or death. And we've gone through a session together of hypnosis. Like, I still struggle with it. I struggled with it last week at Sand Valley. Like, I keep hoping that I can figure it out and solve it, but it's a work in progress. So that helps provide some perspective too.
Yeah. I am so appreciative of your vulnerability, your humanness today. And that's why I was so excited for this conversation for many reasons. And this has just been icing on the cake, the level of vulnerability, the depth we've gone to today, because at the end of the day, we play this game of golf for so many reasons, enjoyment, play, yet even on the worst golf performance days, there are so many other things in life that should still bring us joy. Our golf score should not limit the amount of love, connection, and joy we experience in every other area of our life. So thank you for the vulnerability.
Yeah. I mean, thank you for having me. This was fun.
Absolutely. And where can our listeners go to obviously listen to your incredible podcast, connect with you on social, and learn more about working with you, Evan?
Yeah, the Par Train. Just search the Par Train wherever you like getting your podcasts. I'd say the number 1 episode is Dr. Bob Rotella. So most people start there. So if you want to search Rotella Par Train, it'll pop right up. Instagram's our biggest presence. If you want to follow us there at the Par Train, but we're on every platform. And then if you want to get coached, thepartrain.com, click the mental coaching tab and shoot me a note, and we'll see if we're a good fit for each other.
Perfect. And I'll put all of that in the show notes for everyone. Evan, thank you again, dude. Phenomenal conversation.
Yeah, thank you. This was fun.
Absolutely. For those of you listening, thank you for tuning into another episode. I know you found immense value in all of the wisdom Evan shared. So do yourself a favor. Go back and listen to it again. Have your note-taking device handy. And then second, go share it with a friend, a fellow golfer, even a non-golfer, because there's so much value that applies to life and being the best version of yourself as you continue to work toward enjoying the ride. Well, thank you again for listening. Have a fantastic rest of your week. Hit them straight this weekend, and we'll catch you in the next episode.